Anytime you experience something that feeds your spirit, that for some reason you can no longer do. Either you can no longer do it physically or emotionally. It could be a person, but it can also be activities, right? Horse riding example is one. Let's say that person's very social, very outgoing, has lots of girlfriends or boyfriends. If he meets a significant other, and I'm using relationships because relationships are one of the biggest catalysts for these things, especially if you're dealing with sociopaths and narcissists. Because one of the first things they're going to do is cut you off from your social support network. Okay? And because they're so good at creating identification and tapping into your emotional needs, you'll tend to do what they say. Right? If you're coming to Vegas, we'll cover some of that stuff. But let's say that he systematically isolates her from the people who were closest to her growing up, family, friends. She's all by herself. She's there because she's in love. She's doing the things she was taught to do when you're married to someone or whatever, but she's grieving for those relationships. She'll develop lines that run from the inner canthus down the cheeks, and the longer they are, the more intense it is. So as you're working with people, your partners or whatever, pay attention. Do they have any? And if they do, inquire about them. And the way you say it, is there something you used to do that you absolutely love to do but you don't do anymore, that you would love to do again if you could? And see what they say. Watch what happens to their shen. Okay? And what you want to do is recover it. Okay? You want to recover it. This is part of the Jing module in the face reading system. Right? Jing is about constitution and history, life history. Emotional, the emotions that you've marked and the things that you've stored, or the way you've used your Jing. And that's what happens. When you see lines in the face, you're looking at places where the Jing has dried up. Like if you've ever seen a riverbed that had a lot of river and then it dries up and it cracks, that's exactly what this is. It cracks in the riverbed. If you can restore that love or get them on a path to it, those lines will go away. Okay? Some of you have them, some of you don't. But we've all had things or moments in our life that fed our spirit, that people either didn't approve of, and so we stopped doing it. We need to recover those. We need to build them into our future and our present. You understand? That's what it's about. So, your exercise on that lane of the transformation superhighway is to review your life. If you want to do it on your own, you can. I recommend you partner up with somebody and have them ask you questions. Because then the person watching you can watch your shen. Talk about, first and foremost, all the things you love to do that feed your spirit. All the things you love to do. Like, I know Tina loves archery. She loves shooting. She loves, all these other things, these things that you wouldn't, you look at Tina, I know her, and so I know she's like this amazingly versatile woman, right? But there are things that I know from her past that she loved to do, she wouldn't allow to do, right? Because of the relationship she had and the life circumstances. Recover those. Bring the joy back, because you're allowed. Okay?
It's hard to remember them.
I know. But that's the process. This isn't a once and done thing. You understand, you're going to cycle through these processes over and over and over again. You're never done. Which freaked out one of my students once. After doing the gray room like 20 or 30 times, he goes, every time I go back, I keep finding more stuff. When will I be done? I said, never. He goes, never! Right? And he had a meltdown right there, because I told him, you're always going to find more stuff. You got millions of years of accumulated memories in your cells alone. Right? But as you fix this stuff, you fix it 7 generations forward and 7 generations back. You want to help your children? Fix your shit now. Yeah.
Are you talking with the fixing 7 generations forward? Is that before your children are conceived? Or
No.
Are we talking outside?
You're still helping them, even after they're born. People ask, how do I help my children? I said, fix your shit. Your children are imprinting you constantly, right? And as you change, who they become changes. It never stops. Just because they don't have tools to measure it doesn't mean it's not true. Yes.
So if you don't have kids, does that like just, is it like your sister's kids are okay or something? Like does
I don't know. I wouldn't worry about your sister's kids. I worry about the ones you might spawn.
Well, if I don't raise them, they're still cool though, right?
Yeah. there is, if you ask Lillian, she'll tell you that sometimes traits move laterally. If someone passes on, a lot of times the traits that they have will pass to a sibling, or it's weird. But if you think of these traits as information wanting to move forward, that's how I think of this DNA is information that wants to keep transferring, keep traveling. Whether those things have a physical embodiment like your DNA, the actual physical substance of your DNA, or it's vibrational, it's still the same. You understand what I'm saying? That information wants to be expressed. It wants to inform. That's consciousness informing matter. It will find an outlet. I used to stay up at night going, well, if I die, then the information I have will be lost. And I realized, you know what? It won't. Information's never lost for long. It will come back. Right? You always hear us say there's nothing new under the sun. Well, this shit's been lost and rediscovered over and over, and it'll always be that way. So just don't try to change the system, work with the system you have, right? Questions on this? Is this helpful?
Yes.
Okay. So again, let's be practical with it. Start with the shit that holds you back in terms of your immediate issues. Start to work on your character traits. And you'll find as a byproduct of that a lot of your health stuff will start to change as well, because it's all connected. Right? It's just when we try to follow the Chinese way of connecting things, you get lost in the sauce really fucking quick.
So how does it change 7 generations back?
You'd have to ask God.
Oh, that's my ancestors.
But we do know from scientific studies with insects that 7 to 10 generations of fruit flies will carry the earmarks of the trauma induced on the parent generation 7 generations back. We know that Holocaust survivors are actually, the grandchildren of Holocaust survivors are actually in worse shape many times than their grandparents were. And I have a theory on why that's true, but they do bear the genetic damage from those time periods that they weren't even around for.
What's your theory?
Because your neurology is inherently weighted towards negativity, it gives about 6 times more weight to negative experiences than it does to positive ones. And the difference between the grandparents' generation and the grandchildren, imagination. When you imagine an experience, it is the most horrific you could make it. It gets idealized.
Interesting.
So when they're playing movies of what their grandparents went through, they may actually be making a worse movie than what the grandparents actually told them about. Okay, so that's my working theory. So you combine that really super idealized, personalized, imaginative experience of what it might have been like, combined with the actual genetic memory of it, combined with the negativity of the nervous system to give more power to negative experiences anyway. You may wind up with a generation that's highly overreactive or oversensitive to things.
Yeah, millennials.
Yeah. Right? But again, it's just the David theory. It may or may not be factual, but these are the things that we know are true.
Thank you.
Right? So I want you to, in Planet David, in terms of face reading, I really want you to spend a lot of time studying this map when you get access to it. If you've already been to the face reading class, you should have access to it already. If you have Lillian's book, you have access to it.
It's on the internet.
This is the one that's going to give you probably some of the most useful information right off the bat. If another one you want to pay particular attention to is when you see lines extending from the inner canthus of the eye, but rather than going down the cheek, they're actually coming down the side of the nose. These are called disempowerment lines in Lillian's book. I call them appeasement lines, because the behavior is somebody expressed themselves and the pushback was so negative that they just capitulated. They wanted to they'll do anything to appease the insult or the pushback. And so they're always trying to make up for something. So they're trying to appease. right? And you'll see people coming in from very abusive relationships or very very unequal relationships. We're always in that one down position, and it is like somebody took an X-Acto knife. They're just really deep, right? And when you see that, if you were a predator, you would know you have a pushover, right? If you're a therapist, you know that there's a lot of things that we need to work on in terms of their gallbladder, which is the organ that monitors resentment and timidity and courage. Okay, you probably want to work on their gallbladder, which would show up in here as well. But this is also this is a fire area here, right? And this is a metal area. So don't be surprised if they have some kind of lung issues. Okay, it's all this. It's all relating.